the recording later. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Once again, welcome to Security Compliance Corner. Like I mentioned, this is the first edition that we're having in the year 2026. Thank you so much, everyone, that joined the call so far. So we would like to meet you, would like to know you. You can drop in the chat where you're joining us from and what are your expectations for this particular session. You can drop in the chat so that we know if you're able to meet up your expectations. So today we'll be talking on an amazing topic, insider risk management. We want to see how we can, mitigate this. What is insider risk management and how can we mitigate it of our organization as a compliance or security administrator. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Emmanuel Itoje. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Microsoft certified educator as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also one of the co-lead for the Microsoft Nigeria Security User Group and also the host for this particular event, Security Compliance Corner. I've been in the tech space for over 10 years now, and I'm glad that I find myself in a Microsoft space because it's actually an amazing place to be. Yeah, so our speaker today is no other person than Chidinma Ugwu. So Chidinma is actually an experienced information security specialist with strong expertise in Microsoft security and compliance, which is a Microsoft Purview solutions. She has guided organizations in safeguarding sensitive data and implementing robust security policies and balancing protections with productivity. She has passion for empowering people. She has been with us for some times now in our mentorship program, helping people that need knowledge in security with compliance and around Microsoft solution. So she combines our technical excellence, problem solving skills, and customer focused approach to deliver secure, practical, and scalable solutions while inspiring others to grow in confidence and achieve their professional goals. So it's a pleasure to have Chidinma today join us in this particular session again, and I'm actually very much open to learn from her as I know that for all who have joined this session, we're also going to learn from her. Hi, Chidinma. I'll be handing over the mic to you so I can go backstage now.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I hope our weekend is going well. Happy weekend once again. And okay, I'll be starting our topic today is insider risk management, which is how to protect data from within the organization. Traditional normal security we know about is which is the external factors, which is we are trying to protect our information from hackers, but most times the highest the most dangerous will I call it users are the ones that have legitimate access to your resources, because those ones they can easily uh move the data to their personal cloud space. So, which is what we are talking about today. We are looking at insider risk management and how to manage it. But before we dive into that, we'll start with first of all, I'm going to share my screen. Sorry about that. So I hope you can see my screen. Okay. Like I said, today we'll be talking about insider risk management and what it's all about. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
So our agenda today is we'll be looking at what insider risk really is and why it matters. Also, we'll be looking at the common insider risk scenarios we see in workspaces, and also how Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management works and how we can use the solution to mitigate, investigate, and mitigate risks in our organization, and also best practices for effective insider risk management. But before all of that, who is an insider? In simple terms, an insider is simply someone who has legitimate access to your organization's access, resources, or data. It can be an employee, your contractors, your vendors. It's actually somebody that is trusted. You have trusted your resources. So that's what an insider is. So what makes this an insider risky is because this person can easily is when this person which you have trusted your resources start misusing his access, which is when the person start moving some sensitive data to his personal cloud space or sharing it with some people who is not who the person is not supposed to share the data with. So that's how this person becomes falls under this insider risk category. First of all, before that, in an organization, sometimes when we talk about insider risk, we actually think of okay, maybe some certain kind of persons that is actually misusing the data. But actually, every person in the organization falls under insider risk. Why? Because every person you employ have access to your data. Someone, it can be the manager, it can be the director, it can be even the help desk office, help desk staff. Once the person is in your organization, the person is already under, has already the person fell under insider risks. But what makes the person an insider threat is when the person start misusing the access which the person has on those resources. Like I said earlier, when the person starts, whether it's maliciously or unintentionally, starts misusing those assets. Sometimes we can have insider threats based on example is when maybe an employee who is not really happy about with the organization or how the person is being paid, and the person starts selling the company's information to the competitors. That person is actually an insider threat. But before that person became an insider threat, the person was and fell under insider risks, which where every one of us who is under any organization, we all fell inside that because we have access to our company's resources. But what we do with it is now what makes us a threat or just an insider risk. So before that, I don't know if we have any question, but if we do, we can put it on the chat. Moving forward, now we've understood who is an insider, what an insider risk is all about. So insider risk refers to the, like I said, potential negative impact on an organization due to some individuals' legitimate access to the internal system. We've explained who these insiders are, and also the intentions, how these things are being done. Like most of them are done unintentionally, because sometimes an employee that clicks on a phishing link was not actually trying to like expose the company's data, but because the person clicked on the link, someone outside the organization now have access to the company's resources, which is how the user expose the company's data. So why some are done based on some grievances with the organization, or maybe the person just want to sabotage the company. So those ones are malicious intent. So why is insider risk management essential is to protect sensitive data from being exposed or being leaked by the users in the organization. Also, to prevent financial or operational damage. For example, if some data are being leaked, especially your vendors or your partners, and maybe an employee exposes those data and it gets leaked, it can cause the organization some financial loss and operational damage, and also they will lose trust in their partners. Their partners will lose trust in them, thereby some relationships they have with their partners, they will lose it. So that's why insider risk management is very, very important, because the normal uh, uh, cyber security is based on we're trying to prevent outsiders from having access to the information, but we keep forgetting that most times it's actually people that moves data, and this since it's people that move data, those people can also reside within your organization, and they must not necessarily be someone trying to hack into your environment or into your data. Even someone who an administrator can actually expose or leak your data to people outside. So that's why insider risk is very, very important and
Excellent.
should be managed properly. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you put your slide in presentation mode so it's better that way?
Okay. Is this okay?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
As I was saying, so because of how critical these data are, that's why Microsoft had to look into how to manage these insider risks, because they understood that is all as much as trying to protect our data from the from external factors, is also very important to also protect it internally. So that's how Microsoft had to come about with the solution, which is Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management. So before that, let's look at common examples of insider risk. Like I said earlier, an employee that stores organization's trade secrets in a personal cloud storage. We've seen that like some companies, I've seen some companies that don't have uh, work account. So I remember previously where I used to work, most of the company's data are being stored in my Gmail. And sometimes I feel like if I want to sabotage these companies, it's actually very easy to do that. But because of the kind of person I am, I didn't do that. But it's actually very risky to store for an employee to store organizations' data in their personal cloud storage or their email. Also, we have sensitive customer data copied to external USB drive without authorization. Like example, like moving your company's data to your USB. Maybe you are working in the office and you were not able to finish up. You copy the work you are actually doing and go home with it to finish up with it in your own personal USB or system, which is not supposed to be that way. But we see that happens all the time. So what Insider Risk does is how Insider Risk manages all this is by some policies and some yes, with the policies you can use that to manage how these informations actually move around within your organization. Also, we have it, like I said earlier, a user clicks on a phishing link accidentally, exposing their corporate account credentials. So this action is actually unintentional. Like I said, insider risk can be malicious and non-malicious. And when a user clicks on a phishing link accidentally, that is actually unintentional. So most insider risks are not actually intentional. It's just some mistakes or negligence by the users, which brings about all those threats. Another one is a remote worker connects to the corporate network using unsecured public Wi-Fi, creating a security risk. We've seen that a lot in organizations. So that's why insider risk management is very, very important to organizations, because the world currently is moving towards hybrid and remote work, and because of that, a lot of workers and users are now connecting to open network that are not secured and which exposes the companies and organizations' data to the public. So that's it. So moving on to Microsoft Purview Insider Risk. So what is Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management? I don't know if we have any question now. I'm trying to move fast so that because the practical side of it is going to take a little bit time. So if you have any question for now, you can drop on the chat or you can ask. So what is Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management? It's a compliance solution that helps minimize internal risks by enabling you to detect, investigate, and act on malicious and unintentional activities in your organizations. Like I said earlier, most of these activities actually not malicious. It's just users doing their work, but because of they're not following the policies, they kind of leak the data unknowingly. So we also have what does this insider risk management addresses? It addresses leak of sensitive data, which is data theft and data leakage. We have intellectual property theft, fraud, insider trading. We also have regulatory compliance violations, which is when all these things are done, compliance, the company tends to not meet up with the compliance policies that have been set. So that's why what Microsoft Purview Insider Risk tends to address. So now, what are the roles you need to access this feature? You need the global administrator role with not just the global administrator role. You have to also be in the insider risk management uh, group role groups. Sorry. So that's what the permissions that are required to have access to this feature. So now we've known the permission, we'll be moving into the interface on how to create policy, configure policies, and we're going to do a test on how we can mitigate uh, alert and on using insider risk management solution. Uh, so yeah, can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So we're in Microsoft Purview environment portal, and here we have the insider risk management feature. So before you create an insider risk policy, first of all, we have to go and you have to go over the settings to configure the settings that will apply to the policy. And we go through that by going to the settings and insider risk management. So the first one, we have the analytics. So what it does is it looks for the risky and unusual activities by scanning logs and data from Microsoft 365, which is your environment. And it also helps you to understand the patterns and potential insider risks earlier. So when it's being turned on, the system can scan activities every day and give you helpful insights on what your users are actually doing, or based on the tenant level and on the user level. That's what this feature does. You can actually turn it off if you don't want this feature to be scanning through your environment daily, or you can actually leave it on. But it's actually it just gives you an insight on what is going on, or what is going on both on the tenant level or on the user level. It's just an insight on what your users have been doing, the activities your user has been doing based on in your environment. For example, like It gives you insight on how many data have moved out of your environment, which is data exfiltration, and also how many data has been exposed and the sensitive infos that have been moved out or that have been accessed by people that are not supposed to access it. So that's what this feature does. Then here we have the data sharing. So here data sharing is that here you can use this feature to actually share the information, which is the risk related information, with other security tools and services across your organization. If you have Sentinel or other security tools you are using, you can actually connect it to this insider risk management. And as you're seeing the information here, you can also see it on other of your security tools. So that's what this data sharing is used for. Then we have the detection groups. So here we have the domain, the free public domains. So we here these free public domains are just the domains we know, the Gmail, or public domains that we basically know. We have Facebook, email. These are all public domain. So why this detection group is important is that when you are creating a policy, and maybe if you don't if this is not checked, when you're creating a policy and you don't include all these free domains, what it does is that your users can actually move some informations to those public domains without you knowing. So that's why these public domains are actually very important. It needs to be set, which is very, very important when creating your policies. We have the file part. For this file part, you have to have the devices your users are using. You have to be onboarded. That's what this file part. It has to be onboarded for you to actually have this file part work. And this is important when it has to do with when creating a policy that has to do with users copying files to external devices and moving files to different other devices. That's what this file part is. But currently, I didn't set any policy on that, so that's why there's no file part here. Then we have file types, which is a group that I created. So the file part, the file types I want to capture, these are the file types I want, which means that any information that any policy that I create that has to do with an SIT and the file is in these file types, in these extensions, it means that it's going to capture any activities anytime a user tries to actually copy or move those file is going to capture the activity of any type of files here. So I just added this basic one, but that's what this file type group is for. Is for to use and create file type, sorry, for your policy. So you don't have to keep creating anytime you want to create a policy. You have to come and start adding the file types over and over again. So, but once this is here and you create a policy, you automatically, once you see this file type group when you're creating the policy, so you can either check it there or not if you want to create a policy that has to be based on the file type. So, but here the settings are for you to have these groups already set before you go and create your policy, which is very important. We have the keywords. This for communication, compliance, and also SIT. I actually created this too. So this is a keyword group which I created too. So the keyword means that any file a user is trying to copy or download or access that has credit card on it, you should capture the activity when the user is accessing those kind of file, trying to move those kind of file. So these are the keywords that I want to capture with what my users are doing within the organization. We also have SITs group. So here, because I've created this group, all I simply need to do is to check SIT when I'm creating the policy. I don't have to come and start adding this SIT over again. So because of I've already created an SIT group, which is this. Anytime I create a policy that has to do with SIT, this whenever a person tries to access a document or move a file that has this SIT on, is going to capture the activity of that user. So we have SharePoint sites group, which also I created. So these are the SharePoint sites that have the files that I want to capture the activities, or a user tries I want to capture activities on. So these are the SharePoint sites that I created for the policy. Then we have trainable classifiers, which I didn't create because currently I didn't have any trainable classifier that I want to capture. So that's why I left that one. So moving next to the global exclusion. So what this global exclusion is simply that any person or domain or file path you put here, it means that any policy you are going to create on this insider risk management, these groups are going to be excluded. So if you don't want to be creating, when you're creating the policy and you keep on adding those, you keep on adding exclusion list on the policy anytime you're creating it, you can come here, create an global exclusion list. Anytime you're creating a policy on this insider risk management, it's not going to capture all this, the domain or the email signature or the file path or the keyword. So what this email signature means is that any email that is carrying, let's just say I am the global administrator, and I'm sending out email and I add my email signature. Any information or any data or any file that is bearing my signature will not be captured, even when I'm creating the policy. And when the user accesses those documents, it will not be captured because why? My email signature is on it. So that's what this email signature attachment. So if I turn it on, it means that anytime if I create a policy and I'm sending out an email and that email has my email signature, it's not going to, even if the document I'm sending out is a sensitive document, it's not going to capture, or it's not going to trigger alert for that activity, and it's not going to score that activity. But the IRM is not going to score that activity because of I've already checked this, toggle this on to ignore any attachment that has my email signature. So that's what this is used for. Then, like I said, also like the way we have the data detection group, this is also the exclusion group for all the listed keywords and files that you want to exclude from your policy. So we have so this inline alert customization, when you turn it on, what it does is to fine tune your policy from the alert. I'm still going to show you from the alert where you can fine tune where this feature falls in. You can use it instead of going back to the policy to check to edit or fine tune the policy from the alert that was generated from the IRM configuration. You can fine tune your policy from the alert without going to the policy to go and make changes there. So we have the intelligent detections. We have the fire activity detection. So what this does is the minimum number of events that will. What this does is simply, for example, now let's just say you set how will I put it? Like an average of 10 events in a day, and a user kind of sends a file that is more than that 10 within a month, is not going to capture it because it has not exceeded the number of days you put it in a day. So it checks it, it does that for per day and not per the activities. So that's what this does. But the reason why I actually did it three because I was trying to do a test so that the alert could be triggered for that particular day to exceed the number of event I want to capture. So I had to reduce the number to 3. So that way I will be able to generate an alert for testing purpose. That's why I had to reduce it to 3. Then we have the alert volume. So why I left the alert volume to capture more alert volume is because of it's for testing purpose. But normally, this should not be for be more alert, because when there is so much alert, it's going to actually bring a lot of it's more like cause noise in the alert, which is more like you'll be having false positive alerts that are not actually, and you'll be getting alerts on if or activities that are not actually an issue. For example, a user that sends an email outside the organization uh, is actually a normal event. But if you kind of put these alerts to get to this extreme, every action that user performs that is not risky is going to capture it, because this is how insider risk works. Insider risk doesn't actually uh work by the file you send. It actually works by sequence. For example, let me use real life scenario. For example, a user downloads a file from SharePoint is a normal activity. And if that user renames that file, then it's another activity. But still, that activity is not an issue. Then the user sends that file he renames to his personal email is another activity, but still is not still a problem. But when the user now goes back to delete the original file, that's when the insider risk comes in, because there is a sequence that played that looks malicious, which is, first of all, there was a download, there was a renaming, there was sending, and there was deleting. So that activity in total looks malicious. So that's when insider risk kicks in. It doesn't just kick in once a user performs an activity. It's that sequence that actually brings about the risky activity. That's when you start seeing, okay, these activities this person is trying to do, it looks malicious. Though, if you look at those activity, it might still be that the user is actually renaming his own file. It's not really an organization file, but because of how the activity went about and the number of times the user does it in a day is what makes it malicious. And sometimes the insider risk will score that activity high or medium, depending on if their activities captures any SIT, it might with the number of times you set it to capture, is going to risk it very high. For example, if when you are creating the policy, you actually set that the number of files that should be downloaded is 10 in a day, and this user is, even if the user did not download 10 files in a day, but this sequence that just happened this way, is still going to score that user, because the insider risk management is seen it as a risky activity, even though it might not be a risky activity. That's when an admin comes in and investigate. That's the investigation part of it, and check whether this person is actually doing a malicious activity or not. Then if the person is not doing any kind of malicious activity, then the admin can lower the score for that event. So that's what this this alert volume does. It just generates alert for the event, but what the insider risk management is actually looking at is the sequence more than just the alert, the sequence of how the operation happened. So that's how the insider risk management actually works. So we have here for Defender, Microsoft Defender for endpoint alerts. This has to do with activities that has to violate security, on the endpoint. We'll still look at the feature. Then we also have for domains, unallowed domains. So I added Outlook, the domains I don't want my users to send information to or move files to. So anytime I create a policy and any of my user shares a file or shares an email that has any of the SIT or information I'm trying to protect to these domains, is going to trigger an alert. So that's what this is for. Then these Microsoft Teams, when you toggle this on, what this does is anytime an alert is being generated, you can actually create a case. And when this is on, you create a case on that alert, automatically it creates a channel where you can swarm with your contributors and the admins that you have put in place as the reviewers to work on that, to investigate on that issue before you finally close the case. So that's what this Microsoft Teams is for. We have the notification, which is email notification. The people you want them to get email notification when an alert is triggered. Then we have the policy indicators. These policy indicators, they are just activities, like I was saying, that users could do in the organization. They're not really actually a problem. It's just a normal activities. But like I said, IRM monitors the sequence on how these activities are done. We have indicators, which is sharing SharePoint files with people outside the organization. It's not actually an issue, but is how much of this information is being shared within a specific time that makes it risky. So these are Office 365 indicators. We have downloading, removing sensitivity labels from a file. We have deleting of SharePoint file. These are normal activities that a user sending emails with attachment to self. These are all normal activities, but how these activities are done in sequence is what makes it risky. So we have device indicators, which is creating or copying files to USB drive. Sorry, I don't know if anybody have any questions so far, and I don't know if I'm too fast. Hello? Hello, can we all hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I don't know if I'm too fast, if you are following at all. So, okay, since we don't have any questions, so these are indicators that we can find in this setting. So these indicators need to be set. Sorry, can you mute your mic? So these are the indicators that we use for creating this insider risk policy. And we have device indicators. Like I said, we also have Microsoft Defender for Endpoint indicators, which are activities a user can do in the organization. On a normal, each of these activities on its own is not actually risky or bad at all, like I said earlier. So, but these are just indicators of what the insider risk policy is looking at when it's trying to score a user. So we have the policy time frame. This policy time frame, what it does is how far back the policy will will analyze for a user to trigger an alert. For example, let's just say this user has been, for example, this user has been performing this, has been moving files to outside the organization before you created a policy. Before you created this policy, what he's going to do, if this thing is turned on, is checked to 30 days, he's going to go far back to go and capture when this user has been moving this file, even before you created that policy. So let's just say you created the policy today and the policy kicks in, and this is set to 30 days back. This is actually highest it can go, 30 days back. So what it's going to do is when you try to score the user's activity, it's going to start from let's just today is 28. It's going to start from 1st of February to start pulling up activities that this user has done up to the time you created that policy. You score that user, and if this user has been moving files more than more than the threshold and the number of days you have set that a user can download a file or move a file, is going to score the user either high or medium. That's what this is used for. So we also have the Power Automate, which is for sending email or notifying the admins of any alert that is generated within the policy. So that's what this Power Automate is for. Then we have the priority fiscal assets. So what this is for organizations that have their offices, they are keeping their assets. Maybe let's say banks that have to store their information or in physical places, and these physical places has badges, like the electronic badges. You can actually put those rooms, the assets here, and which when you create a policy that has to do with physical assets. But before that, you're going to add a connector, which is physical asset connector to the policy. So we have priority user group. So priority user group are more like the people you want to focus more on. Let's just say you have your organization, you have the HR team, the finance group. Because of the kind of data these people handles, is the people you want to focus more on the activities they are performing. So that's why they are priority users. So what the policy does is that it looks at their activities. It pays attention more on what this set of people are doing in the organization because of the kind of data they are handling. Then we have the privacy. The privacy is normally the insider risk management. You can choose to hide the user name of the user that the alert is being generated for. But for policies that has to do with DLP and conditional access policy, obviously the name of the user is still going to appear in the DLP or the conditional access when they breach that policy. So, but for insider risk management, you can actually choose to show the name of the user or not. But if the policy you created has to link to the DLP, the username is still going to show in the activity explorer of that DLP policy. So now we've gone through the settings. Let's move to the creating the policy. So here we have recommendations. So normally Microsoft has already created templates that you can actually turn on without you having to go and create a custom policy. So which also you can customize yourself to meet the standard you want. But Microsoft has created some templates organizations can use without them going to create their own policy. So here we have report. Okay, let me check the overview. So this is the overview of the activities that have, like I was saying about the analytic, what it does. It actually scans through the organization files and check the activities and what my user have done. So this the information is just pulling up for visibility until maybe you are trying to look at for a particular user, then you go and score for that user, scan for that particular user's activity. But this is just more like a summary of what has been going down in the organization. Then this spotlight means like is a user with the highest alert, which is a high risky user, an elevated user. So the policy has scored that user high, is why it puts that user on a spotlight, which means that this user needs to be monitored, needs to be these users' activities needs to be monitored and be reviewed at all times. So it's more like puts the person on spotlight to keep watch on what this person is doing, because the number of activities this person has been doing, it doesn't look normal, is high, which has placed the person as a high risky user. So we have the audit logs. The audit log is for activities that an administrator does on this IRM. It doesn't capture the activity the user performs with the policy. For the activity, if you want to do an audit log for the activity the user performed, that one you have to use the audit log feature in this Microsoft Purview. But this is just an activity of what the admins. Maybe someone changes the policy. Somebody, an admin scores a user, an admin edited a policy or viewed a. So this is where it captures it or created a case. But this particular audit log is the admin activity, but not necessarily what the policy or the user is doing. So you can't run the normal audit log for IRM on this, but this is just for what the admins do on the policy. So here we have the policies. So we have policy for DSPM for AI, which is for AI sites. Then we have data leaks. These are the policies I've already created, but we are going to create a new policy. We create a custom policy. So here, now, this policy template is war. Let me explain everything about it. Data theft by departing users. These are people that have resigned. So for example, if you actually created a policy for data theft by departing user, but first of all, what is required is the HR connector, which is the connector that links to the HR file that has the names of people that has departed in the organization. So that's what he uses that's what he uses to create this policy. Without the HR connector, you're not going to be able to create any policy that has to do with data theft by departing users. And what this does is it actually creates when you're creating policy that has to do with this. Okay, since I've already added my HR connector, but I'm going to just click next to show us how. So here we can have specific, because of this has to do with people leaving, you can choose to narrow it down to user or leave it. But I'm leaving it to all users and group because I already have my HR file that has the names of people that are departing in the organization with the date and time, their last working days in it. So you click next. This is an exclusion, like I said earlier, the exclusion group. So assuming in that exclusion group, I've added some users there. When I'm creating policy, even if I don't add those users here, those users in the global exclusion list are still going to be excluded, even though I didn't add them here. So it means that for every policy, those people in that exclusion group, for every policy I create in this tenant, they will always be, for every policy I create in insider risk management, they will be excluded from it. Even though I don't put their name here, they will always be excluded from that policy. So we click next. So here we have content to prioritize, like the SharePoint side, because of So we can choose to either prioritize or not to prioritize. But the reason why it's good to prioritize is because if you don't prioritize, what this does is to capture every activity that has to do with sensitive files and non-sensitive files, which is basically any file that the user moves is going to capture it, which actually kind of will cause confusion, and the administrators or the admins, yes, the admins who are in charge of these insider risks will actually find it hard to narrow down whether the activities this user is performing is actually risky, because almost every alert that comes in, most of them will not actually state whether this user is actually doing an activity that has to put the organization a risk. So because of that, most times it is recommended to prioritize the content. So that way, when alert is being generated, you know that okay, there is a file that has been labeled for that this user is trying to access or move. So we have SharePoint side, we have sensitivity label. It's just like the way DLP is. So this is the same way this IRM is. For so next, you can choose to add the SharePoint site you want to capture. For example, let's just say the users that are departing, they are from finance team. You can choose to add the SharePoint site of the finance team. You can add it there. So which means that anytime these users access or moves file uh, more than the times they're supposed to, then it's going to trigger an alert. What I mean by that is that normally what IRM does is not just the activity the user is doing, is maybe this user before it just kind of downloads one file in a day or two. Then all of a sudden, this user submits his letter of resignation. We've seen most times when people are leaving the organization, they start moving some information outside to their personal cloud space. So then you start seeing user downloading 20 files, 50 files in a day. Is actually looking risky. So when IRM sees this kind of activity, it just triggers an alert that this user is actually performing an activity that is not usual than what he has been doing before. So that's what it does. So the SharePoint site is the site you want to capture for when this user is trying to download file from that SharePoint site or copy files from the SharePoint site. So let me just talk one. Then we go next. We have the sensitivity labels, which is files that have the labels that you want to monitor the activities on. So we have the SITs. So we have the file extension. So I'm just showing us how the policy, but this policy takes more than 24 hours for it to kick in. But I'm just going to show us how to create the policy. Then I'll use the one I've already created to do a test, and we'll see how to investigate an alert and mitigate an alert and actually score a user to see if the user's activity is actually risky or not. So we have the trainable classifier. I can choose to add it or not. So here we have get alert for all activities, just like what I was saying, that if you don't prioritize the activity or the alert, is going to kind of bring so much alert that will cause confusion or will not really capture what you are looking at. So we will click on get alert only related to the activity we prioritize, which is when if this user moves a file that does not have SIT on it, it's not going to capture it. But when this user moves a file from the SharePoint site that we added or this that has the sensitivity label that we selected, is going to capture the activity of that user. Then here we have the HR connector. So because I have added my HR connector, that's why I'm able to toggle it. But if you don't have it connected, it's going to tell you to go and create a HR connector. So I'll still show us how to create HR connector for your policies. So, but here, this is where we now have the indicators. Now you can choose the indicators you want to capture. You can either choose, like if you can either choose not to capture all these activities or focus on just, since we not click on any one drive or some activity that is not related to the SIT, we can actually, for example, downloading content from Teams, we can choose not to toggle it because it's not part of WAR. So we can also check on removing sensitivity label from files. We're not actually looking at that. So, but you can actually still stick it because if you want to, but it's not actually the reason why we are creating this policy. This activity is not really important to that policy, so there's no need of checking it. So you can just check sharing SharePoint file with people outside the organization, which means that when a user shares a file from that SharePoint site we actually added, is going to trigger an alert. So that's what these indicators are for. These indicators on its own are not actually a bad activity, but the reason why we are actually setting it is so that it can monitor each activity and the number of times these activities are being done in a day, depending on how you set the policy. Then we have next, then the detection options, which is how like here we have downgrade or remove, then exfiltrate, which is the user downgraded the label, then moved the file outside the organization, is going to trigger, because we can see two action there, which is kind of a bit is still normal, but because of the user is downgrading the label, it's actually kind of a bit not normal, because if a file is actually applied the right label, and the user who is departing an organization is downgrading the label, the activity is actually suspicious. Why is the user downgrading the label, then moving it? So that's what this detection option does. Then we move to the threshold. So here, this is where we now set the threshold of which is the number of activities that will trigger an alert. So under this office, we have the number of activities, events per day that generates low alerts. So if this user if this user shares a file with a user outside of the organization 10 which is more than 10 times, then it's going to trigger a low alert. If when it does it higher than 20, it triggers a medium severity alert. So that's what this threshold is. It's the number of events that will trigger each alert. So that's what this threshold is actually used for. So which is, for example, like I said, the person that is leaving the organization, when the person is actually moving this file within, because when the person submits his resignation letter, most companies is 2 weeks that you have then before you get disabled from accessing any of your account. So within that space of time that this user is still able to access these resources, so these are where you can set the number of files these users can move in a day. If this user is moving any file moving files higher than this number, then it's going to trigger an alert for the admins to review and monitor this user's activity. So that's what all this threshold is for. So you're going to set a threshold. Since it's a custom, we are not using Microsoft provided threshold. So since a custom threshold, they are going to set each indicator the threshold for it. And when you are done, you click submit. Then you have created the policy. But I've already created a HR a policy for departing employees. So here, this is where you find your HR connector that you use to create policy for people leaving your organization. You come here, data connectors, then you have my connectors. So this is the connector for people leaving the organization. So far, so good. There is no actually activity or any form of activity with the connector, like which these download logs. What it does is that because I've actually collected, I've actually uploaded my CSV, my HR file to this connector, which means that it's going to, anytime a user performs an activity or anytime I logs in, a user resigns and the user's name is in that CSV file, is going to pull a log for me to see, okay, this person has been added to the HR list and is going to give me notice. So for now, there's nothing on that. So if I open this file, there's nothing on it. Say no item injected so far today, which means that there's no user that have resigned, but I just added the template so I can use it and create the HR connector. So to create a connector, you look for, there are so many connectors, but depending on what you're trying to achieve with the policy you're creating, we have so many connectors. So what we would look at is the HR connector. So accept. Then here, before you create a connector, you have to go to the Azure and create an app. Then is that app that you come and add the app ID to this place. Then you give a unique name to that HR connector. So give a name to that HR connector. Let's see. Let me know what I should use. Okay, let me just edit this. Let's see. So this is the app I created in the Azure for this HR connector. Then I gave it a name. Then when we click next, this HR connector is for employee resignation. That's what we are using it for. Then the file mapping, this is where you upload your file, because before you start creating your connector, you have to have your CSV file for people leaving the organization, where you have the username, the email address, the date they submitted their resignation letter, and their last day. So that's the column that is going to be on that CSV file that you're going to upload to this connector. So then you map it, which I've already done. Then next. So let me click manual. So we'll see. So here, yes, this is what you're supposed to map to that CSV file that you created. So when you map it, then you import the file. Once you import the file, then after 24 hours, you come and check if the HR connector has been, after 24 hours, there's some commands that you need to run after creating this HR connector, that you have to import the user, but it's actually a very long process, which I might not be able to cover here, but this for creating policy for people leaving the organization. Then going back to the policy, then we also have policy for people for data leaks, which is here that captures DLP policy. And so for these data leaks, the DLP policy, you can use the DLP policy or the device onboarded to actually create this policy. So this one is for it doesn't have anything to do with people leaving the organization. It's just a policy that you create for how when a user is trying to exfiltrate or move files to their personal device, and how you are going to score that activity. We have here for risky users. So risky users are actually a this data for risky users are actually users that have been scored to have that the IRM has scored to have what are they calling it? That the actions they are carrying out is actually risky users are users that the yes the IRM has seen that okay, the activities of these users, they've been actually marked that they are that is risky. So whatever they do, you sorry, I don't even know. Sorry about that. So the risky users are actually users that is a group of users that you have created, and they have added those users that wherever they are doing, that this IRM should monitor their activities of those users you have created, and you have placed them as risky users, that whatever activities these users are doing, you should see it, they are being seen as risky. So it's a group, actually a group. Then you have priority users, which is people that holds the highest people that have access to maybe the most sensitive files in your organization. They're actually priority users, people that you have to put more checks on. These are priority users. It's actually a group too. Then we have risky AI usage. For example, this risky AI usage is when the employee is copying a file is using your file to go and prompt organization files to prompt in AI websites. For example, let me see, for example, because I've onboarded my device, if I copy this an information for my organization, if I copy it now and try to put it on Copilot, let's see. Okay, this is, let's see. I want to do a test. I actually copied. Okay, yesterday actually when I tried to do this, it actually blocked me, or saying that I couldn't copy. So I'm trying to see whether it's not showing. Okay, this is not showing that it's saved. Okay, sorry, just give me a minute. I'm trying to do a test to show us what this is. Which file? SharePoint. Well, let's see. I didn't actually copy. So I think this I've actually done one activity. Maybe it's going to score it on the policy. So this is actually for risky AI usage. You use communication compliance or your HR data connector or when you onboard your device. Then any activity you try to perform on an AI site, then it's going to capture yes the activity. So let's see. This is for security policy violations. As I was saying, this is uh for endpoint device security for endpoints, which is when a user, which has to do with copying files to devices, which is your USB, your maybe any device that is not a part of that is not onboarded to the organization and trying to move information to it or print to a printer. Yes, this policy is going to capture an activity that has to do with it. So here, that's it for. Then we have for health records, which is if you are trying to create this, you have to go and set up your healthcare connector. Just as we set up our HR connector, that's the same way you set up health connector for health record. If you want to capture activities if that has to do with that, this for people in the health sectors, and this for risky browser usage also. So here you have to download your POV extension to the and attach. You have to download your POV extension, then enable it on the browser of the onboarded device. So it's not simply on any of your users' device. The device has to be onboarded to your organization before the IRM can capture activities that has to do with your device, the user's device. So that's what this is for. And
Hello, just a
now
quick
let's.
question, please, Chidinma.
All right.
I went to the restroom for a bit. The first one that you covered, theft, something about user theft. Do you want to cover it again, please?
Okay.
Yes, data
So
theft.
data
Yeah.
theft. So data theft is by departing users are people that are resigning. For example, if normally we've seen such activities when somebody is leaving an organization, you tend to see people moving files outside to their personal cloud space, cloud device or cloud storage. So now this data theft by the departing users is when, for example, a user whose normal activity is like when he comes in, he downloads 1 or 2 files in a day. Then when this user submits his later, you see this person moving, doing 20 downloads in a day, 30 downloads in a day. This is what the IRM sees this activity and scores it and triggers an alert to the admin that see there's an unusual activity going on with this user that is departing. And this policy is created using HR connector. The HR connector is the connector that links your HR file that has the list of users that have resigned that with their last working the day they submitted their resignation letter and their last working day, so that any activity that is done within that 2 weeks that this person has to leave the organization, and when they perform such activity, is going to trigger an alert to the admin to monitor those people and the activities they are doing and monitor the kind of files they are moving. One good thing about the alert is that it gives you full detail about the the activity that was captured. So let's look at an alert that was generated so far. So, so like here, when I was trying to do a text, then I generated an alert. So let's click on the alert. So when the policies I created, because I was trying to do a test, so the number of event I can perform per day, I reduce this to 3, 4, 5, because I'm trying to do a test. So when I try to do an activity that is more than that 5 times, it started to generate these alerts. So these are alerts that the activities that I've done in one day. This is February 28th, which is today. So which is today, that was before I started this class. So it's showing that the files I've deleted and file I accessed. It will also capture even when I access an AI site. So these are activities that was done today. So because of the alert is bigger than what I actually, the number of activities I added in my policy. Let's go to the policy. So let me edit it. So here I'm under this group, which is executives. So these are for so I prioritize this policy to capture activities that has to do with some SharePoint files, sensitivity label, files that have a certain sensitivity label, and SITs. So next we have the SharePoint site. We have the labels that I'm trying to capture the document, and we have the SIT, which is this. I'm still going to do a test again. So I'm trying to get to the threshold to show you why it was triggering a lot of alert on me. So you see here, the number of activities per day, 3, but I'm doing more than 3. So number of activities for files containing SIT, I'm supposed to do 1 per day, but I'm doing more than 1 per day. Is why that alert was now scoring me high. That I'm a high, which is an elevated user. So now it's called me as if I go back, I'm going to show you that it's called me an elevated user. And an elevated user is more like I'm having the highest. I've actually done way higher than I'm supposed to do for medium priority severity alert. Yes. So these are the numbers I put in. The reason why I said this number is just simply for testing purpose. But recommendation for organizations that are actually functioning, you can actually do 250 or 20 per day for your users. But I actually did this 5 to just so that I can generate an alert immediately to see how, when I was testing the policy, to see how the policy works, whether it's actually working or not. So this is why I actually set those alerts that way. Then we have the indicators.
Thank you.
Which are, yeah, so that's just it. You're welcome. So going back to the alert. So here it puts me on a spotlight because I am showing that because I'm having the highest. It puts me on a spotlight because I'm having 90 over. It's called me 90 over 100, which is the risk score I'm having because of the number of activities that I'm doing. And that activities, I can actually, as an admin, you can assign this if you have many admins that you have created for your IRM policy. You can assign it to any of the admins who can triage on this alert and investigate on it and see why I'm actually performing this activity. So here, so you say this is the alert, the policy that these alerts are coming from. Data leak policy, priority user policy, adaptive protection policy for insider risks. So this is where the alert is coming from. Then here you can actually create a case. Like I said, you can confirm the alert, create a case. When you create a case from this user, it's going to appear under cases here. So, but I created a case for another user that I did a test with, which is Shimobi. This person is a medium, so it's scoring this person 60, which is medium. And here you could see what this person actually, what I did was that I sent an email containing a sample of USSN number to these users, to my Gmail and to this user outside the organization. That's why it's triggering the alert. And where I shared it from is from a SharePoint site. So it's giving you more visibility on what this user did, the destination, the recipients of this of that file that this user shared. Then the keywords is triggered employee details, which is where the SSN number is resides. That's the file name of that file that this user shared with people. And that file name, it doesn't only have it also have full names of people, which is also inside there. And this is what the insight is giving you. Then the alert, the policy triggered the alert for. Then here we have the alert, we have the user activity. So here is going to show you the date this person did the activity and what the policy breached. So this person sent a sensitive info to people outside the organization. So because of the number of times this user did it based on my policy, is why this person, the alert is saying that is moderate, is medium. Assuming he shared it to maybe to 10 people, then this IRM is going to score this user very high. So within 3 months, this user has already this a chart for 3 months. So in these 3 months, what this user has actually done is communication risk, which also that file was also shared. I tried to share that file using Teams. I shared it through Teams to people also outside the organization. I also sent it through email. And if you have set an admin to get for an admin to get an alert. Let's see. Let me look for an email. To get an alert for this user whenever these activities are triggered, it's going to send the admin an email. See, he sent an email in the morning that an alert or usual activity that matches my policy was detected. So that's just the admin will get an alert, email alert, if you want the admin to get their email alert or not. Also, you have the activity explorer, which also this activity explorer is actually the information about the events that this person shared. Which this how activity explorer counts is that it counts it per event. For example, if you sent an email with attachment, it's going to count it as 2 events because one event is an email. The other event has to do that you attached a file to an email, so which is showing as 2 events. So that's how. And if also this alert is breaching a DLP policy, yes, it's still going to also capture it here. So yeah, like you said, it generated high severity DLP alert because I had attached a DLP policy to this policy when I was creating it. For example, we noticed from that policy, we saw that DLP policy was actually checked. Let's see. So here, see the DLP, which means that there's a DLP policy attached to this policy, which means that if a user, so now what this does is that if a user breaches this policy and it has to do with the DLP policy, and in that DLP policy, I said to restrict, it's going to block the user and still capture this activity, but the user is not going to be able to send out that email. But if I actually set the DLP policy to allow the user but generate an alert, it's going to allow the user to send the email and still capture the event. So IRM does not actually restrict the users from moving the information, but it just captures the activities. and lets you know that there is an unusual activity going on currently in your organization. That's what the IRM does. But it does not prevent the user, it does not hinder the user, it does not block the user from sending out for moving the files or information if you do not create a DLP policy that blocks the user from moving files outside the organization. It's not going to IRM is not going to block the user. It's just going to tell you that, hey, there's an unusual activities going on, but it does not block the user from moving the files. So going back to the cases, sorry, I don't know why this is taking time. I don't know if we still have any other person have question. Hello, does anyone have any other question? So looking at the reports or the alerts, the case that I created on this user, we could see more information, which is 4 keywords was detected and there was no label detected. So the file actually shared did not actually have any label on it. When I was doing the test, there was no label on it when I was sending out the email to people outside the organization. There was no label on that file. Then the content explorer here shows you the file and the email that was sent out. Like I said, it's showing here is 4 activity, but it's actually 1 email that was. I think I sent out the email twice or so. Yeah, because I was trying to do a test. Yes, I did. I sent out the email twice. So it's coming as 2 activity. One has to do with, one is an email and the other one is attachment. But the attachment is with the email, and there was no anything written on the body of the email except for the subject that says test. So, but it's showing as a 4 event. So that's how IRM captures it. Then we have the case note. So the case note is a case note an admin can add, saying to any other person that is working on this case with me. Here we have the contributors, which is the list of admins that have access to this case, that we are working on this case together. So each person can come here and drop his note on the findings on this user's activity. So if at the end of the day, let's just say the user activities, we find it more, we can escalate for investigation to the security team. We can also send email notice to the user. These are the things you can do with or like I said, if you go to Teams, you triage it in that channel, which is swarm the issue in that channel. If I click on this, it's going to take me to the channel, to the Teams channel that was created for this user's case. See it here. So here we have the general. So he created a channel for this user. So that's what the Teams does. Then when you have done, maybe after investigation and there's no issue, everything has been resolved, then you resolve the case and you can go back and lower the user, or yes, you can go back and lower the user if the you can go back and lower the user if this is what I'm trying to talk about, if this is not in place. So here we have, users, under these users, these are users that on a normal you can actually personally score for these users, and you do it from here. Let's say, for example, you want to see maybe you want to check whether a particular user has been violating a particular policy. You can click here and start scoring to check any activity that has to do with this user in this number of days. And you can come here, add the user's name. Let's say you want to check for a user, you just click on the user, then give it a name, then set the date within 5 to, but it's 30 days. Then you click on start scoring activity. So when it's done, if there are alerts that was generated on the user, is going to show here, just like the one my generated 3. But as of the time I did this, there was no alert at that time generated for this user. But now there's an alert, is going to show. Then it's showing that mine is a high severity user. So because of what I said, from that event, the number of files I said I shared in a day. So we have here the adaptive protection. So what this adaptive protection does is it watches how people in your organization behave and assign each person's a risk level. For example, low, medium, and high. Like here we have elevated risk. When you check on this elevated risk, is actually going to show my name. Let's see. Hold on. I don't even see that. So it's going to show my. I've forgotten where I even saw where you see that, but I'll still get to that part. Okay, see it here. Yeah. So here I'm the elevated one because of the number of activities I've actually performed in a day, and Chimobi was assigned moderate for his own. So here, that's what this adaptive protection does. Then it just monitors that and assigns risk level to users. Then here, this is where we actually set the risk level. So here, I actually use that high severity alert generated for user. I didn't actually I didn't actually use user performs at least 3 sequence with a high. I didn't use this. I just used the first one when I was creating that for the policy. So here we have the moderate level. If the person is doing below 67 to 10, is actually moderate. Then minor is if the person is doing at least 1 sequence. So that's just what it is. Then past activity detection, just like what I said, that it can detect, it can go way back 30 days, previous activities before that time. So that's what this past activity detection is used for. Then here, like I said, the users that the risk level you assigned to the users that you captured. Then conditional access policy. So what this thing mean is that so let's say if so let's just say if like for that conditional access policy, if a conditional access policy was created to block a user sign in, and this policy is actually for elevated user, which means that because of this that conditional access policy, I'm going to get blocked. But normally, IRN does not block you. But because of this conditional access policy that was created for this elevated user, is going to block me. I don't know if it's. I don't know whether we understood what I said. On a normal, IRN does not actually restrict or any action that you perform that he sees risky. But if there is a policy in place, a DLP policy or conditional access policy that has a block action or restrict action on it, and you perform an activity that triggers that policy, is going to block that user. But same thing like with this or this policy that are here, though the policies that I have here does not have any block action. Even the conditional access policy that I created for it, it was just report only. I didn't turn it on. The block access, I didn't turn it on. It's just report only. So it does not actually block me as the elevated user from performing any action. But if the policies that I had created before had block actions on it and it's turned on, it's actually going to block me once I hit that high severity alert. Any download or sharing of file activity I want to share aside is going to block me. So that's how this tool works. So this is where you turn on this adaptive protection.
How do you turn on the block action?
The block action, you have to go to the policy this one is conditional access policy. You have to go to the policy in Entra ID where you have your conditional access policy and turn it on. For that policy, I just set it on report only. For DLP, you have to go to the DLP policy, which is also here. This policy that are here, you actually see it here. So the policy that has to do with IRM, they are here. It's not all this policy doesn't have to do with IRM related policy. So, but the ones that are related to it is going to actually, if it has a block action on it, it's going to block the elevated user. Only the elevated user that it actually blocks. But for the minor, for the moderate and the low user, it does not block them. It just kind of gives you an alert and more of an alert you to monitor this person's activity, but it will not block the user. The only time this DLP policy, the only person it acts on is a user that have been flagged as an elevated user. That's the user he actually blocks when he scores after scoring the user. Or actually in the if the user is not actually scored elevated user, it's not going to block the user. For example, Chimobi that has moderate risk. Assuming this conditional access policy is turned on and the DLP that I created has block actions in it, it's not going to block for someone that is a moderate risk, but only for people in elevated risk. So that's what is used for. Then we have the forensic evidence. So this this tool is actually used for detecting activities on the endpoint device, which is first of all, you have to onboard your device, you have to get the license, you have the license? Sorry, yes, the add-on for it. This you need an add-on for forensic evidence add-on for this. So when it's turned on, it's going to actually, okay, what this does is it captures activity on the device that has to do with copying files on the USB. So that's what is actually done. The USB activities that has to do with network or activity that has to do with on the device that is not actually on the web, but more like on your device. So that's just what this forensic evidence is used for, and I think it's actually pay as you go or EBS. So it's not, you need a separate add-on for it. Then the notice template is actually email template you create to notify to the user who is actually the insider risk is being generated for, to the user that is performing that action. For example, Chimobi or me, that alert was generated on. So that's where you create the notice template. So for the agent here, this agent is for is just an IRM policy that applies to devices running on the endpoint DLP, which is what I said. is still under endpoint. So, which is the security violation, where you have the security violation. So, for example, if I have a policy that falls under security violation, here is going to fall under the agent policy, which is these ones that are here. So, that's it for IRM and how to mitigate the alert and triage on the alert. So I don't know if anybody have any question so far. Hello. Okay, Ephraim, you can ask. Okay, he said if a member in the global list for exclusion is included in the policy, what will happen? If you select, there is no actually in the policy where you add how like specifically if you select that global, what are they calling it, try to add the user, it's not going to work because this global list means that it's covering the whole it's more like it's higher than whatever policy you're going to set on that user. It's still not going to capture this user because you have put this user on a global setting. So it's not going to, even if you mistakenly add user, it's still going to, this is not going to capture because this user is appearing on the global list. So any other question? Hello? Okay, if we don't have any other question, I will be rounding up. So thank you very much, everyone. So that's it for insider risk management and the best practices on how to mitigate this for this insider risk is one, risk assessment. You should always scan your data and look for activities that are very important to the organizations. They will also have creating policies and making sure that the users are not actually violating them. And also, we have to educate your users on insider risk management, on how they should access their files and how to not violate any policy that has been put in place in this insider risk. So that's just it for insider risk management. So with that being said, thank you everyone. I'll be handing off to Emmanuel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Emmanuel, do you have any question? It seems that you're raising up your hand.
It was actually a mistake. I wanted to applaud you for the wonderful section.
Okay.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for today. I think Itoje is on another call. So
Okay.
we appreciate you for your time and the job well done. It has indeed been from learning to learning. Insider risk management, HR connector, and all. Thank you very much, Delma. Really appreciate you for your time and the energy you have put in place for this section. Okay? And to everyone that joined us, we appreciate you. See you again in our next month's compliance corner. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, we'll need the video.
Sure. The recording will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. Just check the Teams chat before I end the meeting. Channel is there, so that you can just subscribe to the channel, so that subsequently recordings will